Good afternoon. When I was on retreat, sometimes people used to make comments about me, and it was like, he's always rushing around like a teenager or someone in his early 20s. Where's he got all that energy from? I never had an answer, but I've got one now, and the answer is mitochondrial biogenesis. What you might say? Well, let's go into what this is and what it's all about. Very excited to share this one with you. And indeed, it's going to form part of the shamanic experiences, and it's going to go on the curriculum for the training because it's just such an important thing. So here we go. We are all aware that we are made of hundreds of billions of cells. Let's make it nice and simple to start with. We're also aware we've got something called the microbiome. We've got all these microbes which exist in our gut, and we know that there are so many of them that there's actually more of them than there are cells in our body. Quite something. And all this is just to prepare you for what's to come, because inside each of your hundreds of billions of cells, you've got something called mitochondria. Singular mitochondrion, plural mitochondria. And I do mean plural. In each of your body cells, you've got a whole bunch of these mitochondria. That shows you how small they are. They're much smaller than cells. They're about the size of bacteria. This is where it starts to get really interesting, because I remember learning this so long ago when I was studying microbiology. Even in those days, scientists knew that mitochondria were actually bacteria that had evolved to live in a symbiotic relationship with the human being. So this is the way it works. What you've got is you've got the human being's contribution. So what we give to the mitochondria, we give the mitochondria a home. And the home is our body cells. And the cells are, when we're living well, full of oxygen for our good breathing practice, and full of, basically, it's glucose. That is the final metabolic product which is used to deliver energy. So it's literally oxygen and glucose. So you eat all that you eat, and you breathe what you breathe, you digest, and this is what you end up with. And this is what the mitochondria does. The mitochondria takes these ingredients and turns them into energy. And to do this, there's something called adenosine triphosphate, ATP, and it gets converted into ADP. And that's where energy is made. So the funny thing is, human beings, on their own, can't make any energy, can't live. What a thought. We can't even live without our mitochondria. They're that important to us. So where this whole subject of mitochondrial biogenesis comes in is the understanding that when human beings live their lives and get exposed to pollutants and toxicity, and have times when they are not moving and times when they are not eating well and all the rest of it, over a period of time what this creates is mitochondria become ill and eventually die off. And this results in our classic degenerative diseases, the cancer, the heart disease, the Alzheimer's, the dementia. All these diseases is the outworking of energetically compromised, not functioning properly mitochondria. So the obvious question to ask is, okay, so that's what happens. So when a person gets old, they breathe more shallowly, they take less exercise, they eat less, and they get less energy. It's a diminishing energetic basket that the human being's got. That's a normal situation. And it's possible to completely overcome this by, yes, I love saying it, mitochondrial biogenesis. So here's what we do. Number one, available to all human beings on the planet, we take plenty of exercise. Particularly good exercises involve walking, swimming, dancing, yoga, and one of my special favourites, Qigong, and other bodywork practices. What happens is when we engage in physical exercise, this causes the mitochondria to regenerate and to become healthier. So a little bit more detail. When the mitochondria actually are taking the glucose and the oxygen and making energy for us, they actually produce as a byproduct free radicals. Now these free radicals are exactly the same thing that you find in the classic, the takeaway. You go and have a takeaway and it's full of this fat which is of poor quality, the cheapest possible, most likely genetically modified, and that fat has been heated up over and over and over again in a deep fat fryer at the takeaway, and the poor customer eats that stuff and that floods the body with free radicals. So anything that you do which is like toxic to the body, that's the best example really, those rancid oils, but there's many others, that creates free radicals in the body. But the mitochondria create them on their own quite naturally as a result of their processing, creating energy for us and for themselves. So there's our number one, is exercise, incredibly powerful and useful. Number two, and this is an interesting one, because if your mitochondria are not in that good a state and you do good breathing practice on its own is not enough, but good breathing practice is certainly helpful, and it's putting you into the right state. I personally feel that meditation is something that's very useful, and I recommend my 60-second meditation as a way to get into that. And then there's nutrition. And all this came up because I got an email this morning from GMedInfo, who you know I love and a great source of information. And indeed the founder of that group is producing a book called Regenerate. All good stuff. Right, well, the email was about ginger, and it turns out that there are lots of things we could do nutritionally to create mitochondrial biogenesis. So eating ginger is very good, and it won't surprise you to know this, of course, my old friend turmeric, what the Americans call curcumin. Another wonderful way to actually create mitochondrial biogenesis. It's a tongue twister sometimes, isn't it? And it goes on. Polyphenols, antioxidants. Immediately I'm drawn to the retreats, giving the people the turmeric in the food and the pomegranate. The pomegranate's a wonderful source of polyphenols. Resveratrol found in pomegranates, beetroot, the beetroot juices I provided. Beetroot plus a whole load of other vegetables actually. Red wine, anything that's got that really strong dark red colour is also something which actually revivifies your mitochondria. So if you want to have more energy and a more active life and feel more capable, then one of the first things to do is to start getting in touch with what you can do to literally give new lease of life to mitochondria. So there are some more things which I'm going to add to the description. That's just to get you going. And I do want to point out that anyone who's doing my shamanic experiences, and it's on the curriculum now, the shamanic training, this is something that you will learn how to do. I will teach you my very particular bodywork practices which are of extraordinary value. Okay, let me give you another one because it's just one of my favourites. For years now on retreats I've been taking people to bodies of water, a river, a pond, a lake, a quarry pool, the sea, wherever. Clothes off, get in the sea. Well, it turns out that clothes off and get into cold water, experiencing cold produces mitochondrial regenesis. And so does intermittent fasting, which we do on all retreats. We have a breakfast, we have lunch, nothing until the next day. Classic intermittent fasting. This is all about mitochondrial biogenesis. So this is what I realise. I've been doing so many of these things automatically because that's what the guides have been telling me to do. And I don't question, I just guess I don't do it. It's okay, they say, right, let's get into cold water, do it myself for a while, invite other people to join me. I'm delighted when pretty much everyone's getting in. All that kind of stuff, that's actually been putting you into a situation where your mitochondria are firing on all thrusters, and let's keep them that way. Let us be the people, let us be the ones that do not succumb to these Western degenerative diseases. I won't bother to name them again. Let's not give them the house room. Let's put our houses in order. Let's give ourselves a good nutrition. Let's avoid ourselves a toxic nutrition, and let's make friends with ginger, with turmeric, with pomegranate, with cold water experiences, with intermittent fasting, and everything else that you find works for you. And don't forget my film about Aquarian Commandment. Don't believe any of this. Check it all out for yourself. See what works for you. Thank you very much, and all the love.